Welcome back to the channel, guys. Drew here, and we're going to talk about the worst part of having newer vehicles, brand new vehicles on the Turo platform. And it's not what you think it is. It's not damage and people stealing your cars and none of that stuff. The worst thing that can affect your revenue and your profits and all that. Let's talk about it. Let's jump in. Alright guys, very easy for me here. The worst part of having newer vehicles, especially brand new models, is recalls. And recalls can cause a lot of problems. I've got 3 vehicles right now that are out for recalls. And what happens when they get a recall is Turo will immediately delist the vehicle. And you don't know how long it's going to take you to get the recall done. And they'll also, and this is the first time it's happened to me recently, my Bronco had a recall, and they literally canceled the trip right before the host is, and I didn't have the ability to try to, I tried to salvage the trip by switching to a different vehicle, but it just didn't work out. So I lost out a lot of money. I'm blocked off of that vehicle until I can get it fixed. And the worst part is when you're trying to get it in to get the recall done, a lot of the dealerships, because of all these different things going on, people keeping their cars longer, and the dealership being able to staff properly for techs and keeping good employees, the service departments are just backed up. Sometimes it'll take weeks and even a month, up to a month, to try to get in to get the recall fixed. And then, you don't know if they have a part out yet or whatever. So you got a vehicle that can be stuck in limbo. You're making payments on it and you can't bring in income for that. And it can be really, really disastrous. Ford is one of the worst. So I have a lot of Ford vehicles. I got 2 Ford Broncos, I got 2 Mavericks, and I have more on order, Ford Lightning and a bunch of other vehicles that I'm looking at. And Ford is bad with this. There's a lot of good things that Ford has. I love their app access. I love that it's free. I love I can do remote check-in. They have great new models that people are excited about and want to rent. But this recall thing can be a problem. So I want to give you a couple tips on how to help in this type of scenario. The first thing is, as soon as you get a notification from Turo, first thing you do is call the Ford dealership or whatever dealership it is. It doesn't have to be Ford, but as soon as you get a notification, call them and try to set an appointment to get the recall done right away. Remember, when that recall goes out, a lot of thousands of other people are going to get it. So you want to be the first one in line to get it fixed as soon as possible. And I create a sob story. I tell them, look, I'm not comfortable driving this vehicle. It says it's a safety recall, and I don't know if this is safe for my family. And I make it sound like it's most of the time these recalls are hardly anything. Sometimes they can be severe with like the airbag one and all that stuff, but most of the time it's no big deal. But I make it sound like to the service rep, to the person that's taking the appointments, like I got to get this vehicle in. This is important to the safety of my family. And sometimes they'll squeeze you in, and if they have the availability to fix the recall. So that's the first thing you do. The next thing you do is you reach out to some of the guests that you have, depending on how far in advance they're booked out, and depending if Turo hasn't already canceled those bookings, and you try to salvage them by hooking them up with other vehicles that you have. You be preemptive with that and try to salvage what you can. But other than that, there's not a lot you can do as far as that goes. So to prevent this in the future, where I never recommend having more than 3 of the same vehicle. For this reason, if you got 3 of the same vehicle, one recall comes out and all of a sudden 3 of your fleet is down. I will never have 3 of the same vehicle at the same time unless you've got a fleet of 30 plus cars and up. And if you got that many vehicles, then maybe you can afford to lose 3 vehicles at the same time. But now, since we're on this topic of magic numbers, I'm a big fan of using the Turo business as a side hustle. I don't think you need to turn this into a full-time business. I recommend for most people that it shouldn't be a full-time business. Now, if you want to have 20, 30, 40 cars and you want to try to bring in, $150,000, $200,000 a year, remember that's not all profit. You got to take all that stuff off, and but if you want to do that, that's fine. And I think the advice that I give on here will help you build your fleet. It can't hurt you at all, that's for sure. But I'm a big believer in keeping the Turo business for most people as a side hustle, which means and my recommended amount of vehicles is 2 to 3 cars. or 5 to 7 cars, or 8 to 12 cars. And those are the magic numbers. And there's benefits to each of those groups. 3 cars is way better than having 1 car, especially if you have auto loans. If you have 3 cars and 1 car gets in an accident or is out of service or the engine blows up or whatever, you have 2 other cars that, with 2 cars, you can easily pay the payments of 3 vehicles 99% of the time. If you've purchased your vehicles properly and you've done a little due diligence like we talk about. So 3 cars is much better than 1 car. And so if you're jumping into the Turo business, I don't recommend jumping out and getting 1 car and 1 big fat payment and just hope everything works out. It could work out, but also something could happen to that car. When I got into the business, I accidentally realized I had a Tesla Model 3 and it took off, and then I quickly added 2 other vehicles, and that was a huge blessing because there was times about 6 months in where my Tesla got in a very severe accident, about $30,000 worth of damage, and it was out of service at the time. It was a new model, so it was difficult to get parts. It was out of service for like 6 to 7 months, and I was blessed to have 2 other vehicles, a nice truck and a Camaro that literally paid for all of my payments during that time. And so having 3 vehicles instead of 1 vehicle really balances your risk out, and it's a much safer way, believe it or not, to do the business. Now, when you get to 5 and 7 vehicles, it really helps you as far as having vehicles to when you have an issue, no matter how consistent you are with this business as far as maintenance and all that stuff, you're going to have times where a vehicle's out of service, a check engine light comes on, somebody hits a curb and damages the tire, and oftentimes you'll have to switch a vehicle from one customer to another. Maybe it's upgrading a customer. But having 5 to 7 vehicles is nice because it allows you, it gives you enough vehicles to switch to different things when you have problems. Now, the 8 to 12 vehicles, this is where I live in. I live between 8 to 12 vehicles, and I love that spot. It's what I can manage by myself without hiring people to do the work for me. And I can do this in my own time, and just me and my son and so forth. So it's a sweet spot because you don't have to worry about, if you're in a state like Maryland, which I'm in, commercial insurance is extremely difficult to get and very, very expensive. Now, I have a couple of my vehicles on commercial insurance, but it's substantially more than my personal insurance. And so I'm basically just using the commercial insurance, to build commercial insurance history. And then hopefully in the future, I could put more of my fleet on the commercial side. So now some states, it's easy to get commercial insurance. It's low cost depending on the cities that you live in. And you don't have that problem. But with me, I use multiple different insurance providers. I have Geico, I have State Farm for my own personal providers, and then I have a commercial policy. So I split up my fleet of vehicles between those 3 policies, and it balances out my risk. So there was a time where I had a couple minor incidences with Geico, and I really thought they were going to cancel me. And I had to have a backup plan. So that's before that, I had already diversified my risk as far as insurance providers. And so Geico, for whatever reason, they definitely knew I was doing Turo. They definitely were not Geico is not like super Turo friendly. A lot of times they'll kind of look the other way if you're a good, been a good client. I've been with Geico for like 12 years, so maybe they looked at my history and was like, look, this guy's not doing any claims anyways. They like my revenue coming in. I don't know why, but they didn't cancel me. And so I've kept with Geico. It's one of the lower cost providers in Maryland. And I also have State Farm as a backup. And State Farm's great for me because I have my home and a bunch of policies with State Farm, and so they like me as well. So it's good to be on the good side of your insurance providers in case you have little minor issues, a little claim that they're like, how does this person have your car and why? Sometimes if you got a great relationship with your insurance provider, they'll kind of look the other way, even if they're not super Turo friendly, so to speak. Obviously, there's other providers out there that are Turo friendly. You can look at Liberty Mutual. Some people have great luck with that. There's other providers that are very Turo friendly, but it really depends on the state. And Maryland is a very difficult state as far as that goes. So a lot of information here, guys. Hopefully it's helpful. Until next time, stay tuned, and I can't possibly wait to get my vehicles back out of the recall status and making me money. And so hopefully you're not in the same boat as me. Thanks, guys. Till next time, I'm out.